Usyk will
You're
quit.
teaching the school.
Usyk will quit. You're wrong. You're going to get the shock of your life.
No, it's better to burn out than fade away.
There we go.
He is not elite yet. Tell me one elite fighter he's beat.
You want to see what the Silk said?
Yes.
I don't know whether to float or gloat.
What size feet is he, Ben?
And welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, probably the best boxing podcast in the world. My name's Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
And collectively, we are Sugar, Silk. We don't have Gary Stretch. I believe Gary Stretch may be taking a bit of a sabbatical for a few shows. But, you know, he said we'll have to fly the flag. So we're going to fly the flag, both British, American, Canadian, and...
He's taking a what?
Sabbatical. Here we go again. Here's the Silk. Go on. He's taking a
I just want to
sabbatical.
know, what's the derivative of the word? Where does it come from?
Well, you never heard that term.
It has something to do with the Sabbath?
Do you know what? It may have so good. I know it's usually a holiday, but it's possibly like an extended holiday rather than just a holiday. When someone says, I've been looking at Turkey or I've been looking at Italy, I may take a sabbatical this summer. But do you know what? I've got to hand it to you. Nobody else.
As we know.
Say again?
I said it's important that we teach as we know.
Yeah, I guess it is important. What's probably even more important, which I've just reminded myself of from the other week, is the mute button. The fact that I am basically Jehovah and I control the volume of everybody or the audibility. That's another good idea. But I've got to hand it to you. Nobody else can do this. I can't think of another podcast that starts like that. Literally, I just try to talk a little bit of a slick intro, and we end up talking about sabbaticals and.
Well, it's very. I just find it very interesting. You're calling yourself Hova, like Jay-Z, right?
I said Jehovah.
Oh, Jehovah. Okay.
Listen, I think the sooner we get around to talk about the weekend's boxing action, the better it will be. So, Silk, bit of a shock.
David. Yeah.
Stop talking when I'm talking. That's how we do it.
I had to say hi to David. Dave came on.
I know David came on. David is a very nice fella. He's a whip with the British license by the British Boxing Board of Control. He's one of those guys that the glue that holds the show together. He's the one who gets the gloves, takes the gloves, makes sure everybody's got gloves, and gets them for the ring and says, guys, okay, 5 minutes, okay. Guys, sorry, you're going to be on third because such and such has broken his ankle doing star jumps, that kind of thing. Now, listen, bit of an upset in Orlando, Florida. You already want to talk, but just try and suppress the urge. Listen, a bit of an upset in Orlando, Florida, when Tim Tszyu got absolutely bounced off the canvas like an advert for Spalding, the rubber ball company, by the way. By Bakram Murtazaliev, however you pronounce it. So he looked defensively woeful. I've got to tell you, Silk. He's so upright. There's no head movement, and you constantly say, "Well, what the hell are they doing with these guys in the gym?" Are you going to say that again?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely, 100%. Once you get to the the air's thin at the top, and once you get up there, every single little thing that you have or do not have makes a difference. And that's probably what it came down to. But before we even get there, I really have to go. You know, they start the fight. They announced it, and they said, "Well, Bakram has a 3-inch longer arm advantage and a 3-inch or 2.5-inch height advantage." That's not an advantage. None of those things are advantages. Why does that even come into play with boxing?
Do you know what?
I don't even get it.
I think, Silk, what has happened now, and I never remember you being like this before. You've always a maverick. I understand that. You always walked your own path.
I'm always a what? A what breaker?
Oh, for fuck's sake. If you don't know every word I use, which isn't really obvious, you're going to quiz me on and ask where it comes from. And
no, you said it's something breaker, like a Mao breaker. I don't know what that is.
Maverick.
Oh, Maverick.
It's an unbranded calf, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes just let me keep talking and you'll understand some of the other words I say and you'll be good. All right?
That's a good one.
Now, or we could do, maybe I'll get captions done on the show. You've always been a maverick, but I feel what's happening now is your whole platform on boxing is all about the contrarianisms. Like I see you banging on about the jab again, the left jab on your page, a couple of different statuses. The gloves you will bring up at every point, and some of our fans are saying, "Shut up about the goddamn gloves! It is getting so boring." And now you're saying there is no height advantage, there is no reach advantage, there is no weight advantage. The only weight advantage is 4 ounces in a glove or 6 ounces in a glove or whatever. But go ahead. I know you don't believe in height and reach advantages, and also, you know what? See, my position almost always with these things is yes, they can be circumvented. They're not the be all and end all. Sometimes it can be a hassle, you know, when you've got a good opponent who's taller than you with a longer reach, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what you've seen before and what you haven't. If you've never been exposed to it, that's going to be a problem. If I'm fighting a tall guy with short arms and I have longer arms than him, you know what I mean? That's going to be an issue because I've never seen anything like that before. Gentlemen, you know, you're fighting somebody and their timing is different than what you used to moving with. That's going to cause a problem. There's so many things that are real issues that they don't cover, and they're talking this. I don't know. It's prehistoric. It's like caveman stuff. A guy with how does a guy with three extra inches in length of their arm make a difference in a fight?
Can I tell you one thing? And by the way, I'm sympathetic.
Can you tell me that? Since you're defending the point, can you tell me that? I'm asking you.
I'm not defending the point. I've never see. This is the thing. You super.
Okay, so there you said okay, but first you got mad at me for bringing up the point. Now you're saying you're not defending it because it's a legitimate point.
I'm not defending it. What I'm saying is, it's just the fact you immediately went there. It occurs to me that your whole thing now has become this renegade.
Yeah, I'm the contrarian. No, it's not that.
I do have straight a different. Away you think what in my book of contrarianisms? Let's go to this one.
I like to get my viewpoint out. Like I hold on to it all the time, but then I'm like, why should I? This is like idiotic for me to hold back.
What I want to tell you is this. I want to throw in this for you. I don't disagree that height advantage and reach advantage are two of those cliches that may be massively overrated. And I also agree that most commentators are getting money for nothing. They're stealing money because they provide no insight. And I include in that guys like Richie Woodall, who's been there for years on air. And he is a nice fella. I'm not slagging Richie Woodall off because I really like him as a person. But I am bored to death of his commentary. And every single time, 400 times a night on commentary on a show, he says he's got to maintain the gap. He's got to maintain the gap. He's got to close the gap. And that's all he says. But listen, before we get in trouble with slagging off them, and I suddenly find I've got problems with accreditation for Queensbury shows, so I do agree with you, Silk. They are phoning it in that stuff. But I want you to consider this because your idol and your nomination for the greatest fighter who ever had the gloves on, whatever weight they were, said Muhammad Ali ahead of the Foreman fight in Zaire. He was talking to Norman Mailer. The conversation appeared in that wonderful tome, The Fight, by Norman Mailer. And he says Ali is assembling all of the logic and reason in his camp, in his kingdom, that says he will beat Foreman. And it's very important for him to set out his stall psychically. Mailer refers to it as he's erecting a wall of ego with his own will. And at one point he says, I've got a 1 1/2 reach advantage on George, amongst other things. He says a 1/4 inch is an advantage. 1 1/2, that's a lot. And that's what Ali said. Obviously you disagree with him, which is fine. But it was funny. He said that.
But Ben, what Ali has is the most amazing ability, which is unique to a lot of people. That's the ability to like psych himself into a win. Like, do you see what he did against Liston? Like, everyone had him, but everyone had him losing that fight by KO and early, right? Nobody was picking Ali really. No one's gonna
three.
But Ali believed himself. What Ali has this incredible ability to do is to talk himself into winning. Like, it's almost like self-hypnosis. And the more he repeats it and the more he says it, the more he believes it. And it's the same thing with George Foreman. That's like the weaponry. That's part of the mind.
So you telling me he didn't really think it was an advantage? Are you telling me he didn't really think?
So I'm saying he could be telling you something that he doesn't really believe in his essence, but he'll say it anyway and fool himself into believing it's an advantage, and then going ahead and going into the fight confidently, because he was extremely confident when he went to that fight, and nobody thought he should have been confident going into the George Foreman fight. I remember I was like, I don't know, a 10-year-old kid on the playground. I remember having arguments with kids, and yeah, everything that pointed to it logically, especially at that point, was that Foreman was absolutely going to murder Ali. And then when he didn't, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. And the thing is, Ali said loads of things, some of which he clearly didn't believe in or contradicted himself. But the thing is, he may have thought reach was an advantage. He may have believed that. But at the same time, he may not have done. So regardless, go ahead, Silk. As soon as the fight started, they were saying that. And then tell me the story from there.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when the fight started, I wasn't sure why Tszyu would take this fight. What between us? What do you know that would make him want to take this fight? He's fighting for the world title right away. He mustn't have had much.
No, sorry. I'll permit you your contrarianism. Don't say the world title. A version. That's it. He's fighting for a version. Literally, that's all it is.
He's fighting for a third of the world. He's fighting for a third or a quarter of the world title, right? So he's fighting Bakram for the IBF junior middleweight title.
Yeah.
And they must either not have a high opinion of Bakram's ability, they didn't look at him, or they have an overinflated opinion of Tim's ability. Like, something is definitely wrong. Something is wrong because they're not making the right decisions with this kid. Like when he was cut in that fight against the Fondura, yeah. When he was at what point, like, that cut was so bad, a lot of trainers would say, you know what, stop the fight here, and it's a technical draw, and he's still champion.
That was a vacant title fight. No, that was a vacant title fight, I believe.
I'm not sure. So actually, Tim Tszyu wasn't champion going into that?
Hang on. There was two. See, this is why it's so confusing, Silk, because of what they've done to the game. There was two titles, I believe, at stake, right? There was the WBO and the WBA, I think it was. I'm going to check it. We can keep talking. I'm going to have a look at that because I don't know. See, was Tszyu actually? I think Tszyu was a title holder going into it. I think they both were. I think that's what it was. They were both. It was a unification, I believe. But I'm going to check it. Okay.
You can tell me I'm right. It's okay. You can say you were right. It doesn't hurt anything. I think everyone would still have a high opinion and vision, value you. But let's let that go. Okay, they don't really have a high opinion. They really don't have a high opinion of Bakram's ability, and I don't think they really. I mean, this kid, how many amateur fights did he have? He's coming out of Russia. Probably he has at least 200 amateur fights.
You know how they go. You know how they do.
You know what I mean? And then he's undefeated, 23-0 with 17 knockouts. He has something like a 70% knockout ratio. What made him think that would be the best fight for him?
Okay, so there we go. We were both right in a sense, Silk, because it was the Fondura fight was for the vacant WBC title, and it was for the WBO title, which I believe Tszyu held. Let me just check. I believe Tszyu held that already, probably in some kind of upgrade, primed up situation. But he beat Brian Mendoza before that for the WBO title. Yeah, do you know what? Tszyu, here's the line, right? He fought a guy called Carlos. Well, huh?
Do you know what that is?
What are you trying to say it is? Go on.
It's crow. And usually when you have to eat crow.
You don't have talks and bollocks because your whole position is you're right at all costs. Look at this. Listen, Tszyu, he beat a guy called Carlos Ocampo for the interim title, right? Then he appears to have been upgraded because he's defending the full title against Mendoza. Then he fights Fondura for the vacant WBC title. It kind of was a vacant title, but yeah, technically, it's such a mess. You can't claim anything on that, really. It was a unification fight, one of which he held, having previously been an interim champion. Whatever.
Okay, but it was for a world title.
It was for a world title, yes, of course. Yeah, it wasn't for the world. But I never said it was. We didn't debate that. What we said was, you said he would still be champion, and I was saying, wasn't it a vacant title? Yes, it was a vacant title fight, but he was defending his WBO belt. That's Pick'em.
Okay, as long as you feel, I just want you to feel good. Let's keep this moving.
Well, you know what? I understand that because that is your constant premise. That's why you always make this process so much easier and brings, But go on.
So, I mean, really, well, I talked about it being an overinflated sense of himself, but what would make him take this fight against this kid when he's coming? I mean, one, he's not the champ. He doesn't have anything on his terms. He could, get. He could straighten out the ship, like fix what may have been broken, what didn't allow him to win the fight against Fondura. Besides the cut, there were some major things going on there that he wasn't able to do, and he wasn't able to take advantage of. Even still, with the cut, the blood coming down his face. After a while, it's like you accept it. That's the issue. Now you work to get over it. Where's the communication between the trainer and the fighter? You have to. Fighting is all about adversity, and if you don't overcome adversity, you're not a fighter. That's what fighting is all about. And that adversity is physicalized in the ring, and those punches mean something, and the guy's style means something. What did they do with? I mean, look, Tszyu had his head exactly where it was every time he finished punching. There's absolutely no head movement. And it was absolutely stunning to see a fighter of that level with that kind of pedigree as his father and him not being able to defend against punches. That should be the first thing you do as a fighter. The first thing.
And all he seemed to have, Silk, is when the shot comes to him and the offensive is launched at him, he puts his hands wide like this, like he's trying to parry with both hands, and then just jumps backwards. You know what I mean? He widens the hands and then just pushes away with his head straight up, bolt upright.
Yeah. And the thing is, his head is always in one place. And what happens when you leave your head in one place? It's like breadcrumbs. You know what I mean? It's coming right back to you, Hansel and Gretel. Like as soon as you stick your hand out, a man, as soon as he makes that miss, he punches to the end of where your hand is, or to the adjoining part, and your head is there. It's you could be blind and punch a guy like that. So once you have your head moving, you always have a guy estimating or guesstimating where your head's going to be. That causes him to hesitate. That's a form of defense. It's just as effective as this and the shoulder roll and all that Philly shell and leaning back from punches and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Not having your head where your opponent thinks it's going to be or is the most important form of defense coming. It makes them hesitate. If they're not punching, they're not winning. And they're not hitting you. So you lower their numbers because they're always guessing where you're going to be next. So I don't understand what his camp was doing. This kid, Matarov, obviously had an offense, and to become world champion, you had to have something going for you.
Murtazaliev, not don't mix him up with Madrimov.
Oh, okay.
Should I get a picture of a
you feel better now, right? Now you're still down 3-1.
Listen, while I'm correcting people, let me say to Sarge Ali, it wasn't Tszyu did not lose his unbeaten record to Vernon Forrest. He lost it to Vince Cool Phillips. Just wanted to point that out too.
Yeah, that was an incredible fight. Well, and the knockdown of Tim was just another technical mistake. I mean, obviously fighters make it. We all make it. I've made them, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But you'd think you want to learn from history. And when he threw that, he was throwing a left uppercut to the body, and he left his right side of his face wide open. And whenever you throw a left uppercut to the body, the first punch that's coming back to you, and this is elementary school boxing, is the left hook. You're here. You don't expose yourself. You don't expose that side of your face. And he dropped here, and he got caught with that hook, and it was a hell of a punch. A lot of heart to come back and get up off it. In fact, he showed a lot of heart throughout the fight, but he just shouldn't have been getting caught clean like that.
No, it was, to me, honestly. I mean, it was astonishing because he almost looked like, when I see his legs go, and after he got knocked down 3 times in the second round, again in the fourth, and then he was about to get knocked down when the towel came in. As he was stumbling around the ring and shipping shots, it looked like an unlicensed fighter nearly, like one of the things I've seen at one of the insalubrious venues in London or in the far reaches of Essex in a dimly lit sort of unsanctioned affair. It was he looked like that level of skill.
You could see his heart, right? You could see his heart. You could see he was flinching like a fighter. You know what I mean? Like he was trying to, as much as everything was discombobulated and as crazy as his legs were, you could see he still wanted to fight, and he had that heart. He wasn't feeling pain, but he just wasn't in control, and only because his head stayed in that same place, and the kid could punch that he was fighting, obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's difficult to say. I saw Rick Glazer. I know he's a controversial figure, and some people regard him as a buffoon, but he, on Twitter earlier, was saying that he really thinks Tim should retire, and he doesn't see where else he can go. People often say, and there's been a few debates about this with various fighters recently, including Anthony Joshua and Fraser Clark. Some people say people are too quick to write fighters off and keep telling them they've got nowhere to go and they ought to retire when it's absolutely ludicrous, and that fighters should just dust themselves off and come again. I mean, I think Tszyu is a little young to be told he has to retire, but at the same time, the upward trajectory is not immediately visible as things stand, is it?
No, it's not, and it's unfortunate. This kind of, I mean, we like to say it's a mistake that's made with him, but it's life. The fight is life, and life is the fight. And if he still has a love and passion for the fight, he absolutely can come back and win a title. There's no reason why not. He can absolutely come back and maybe even avenge the loss against this kid and Findura. It absolutely can be done, but he has to have the right kind of team around him that allows him to do that. People that see the mistakes, people that see the future, people that see the potential, people that know what he needs in order to become a complete fighter. Look at, I know the feeling. I remember when I lost the Tate fight, and then after that I lost the Barkley fight, and the head of the head executive of boxing at NBC was like, "I stick a fork in him. He's done. He'll never again." And I'm like, how is that? How do you lose to two of the top fighters in the world, and then all of a sudden you're not? You know what I mean? It's not like you're losing to Hammond Eggers and it's like a 4-round fight. You're fighting for a world title, and you are going to win and you are going to lose. That's always going to happen to somebody. And if you're making adjustments and you're fixing, there's no telling what you can do. So I absolutely have belief in Tim Tszyu's ability. You could see his heart when he was hurt. That's just so rare to see that kind of that desire, that hunt for the fight. He's good with that. So because he has that, he'll be able to make changes and do well. But he does need to have the right people around. I don't understand why. I mean, his father sees that. He must see it.
Yeah, and his father was trained, I believe, by Johnny Lewis, who's like possibly the most legendary name in Aussie coaching of the last 50 years or so. So you would think that.
But do you think his father is kind of like, well, hands off because he doesn't want to, his son doesn't want him sort of like meddling, that father-son thing? Why is it?
You say that, but he's got a team, hasn't he? Because it's not like the dad trains him, is it? I don't believe.
No, his dad does not train him. That's what I'm saying. Why hasn't his father at some point stepped in and said, I've been down this road before, and you know what I mean? We need to fix it. Like, I'm sure he knows how to fix it.
What you're saying is perhaps he's mindful of not doing that because he doesn't want to be that overbearing father. So perhaps he's almost given too much free rein without an intervention that he could have made because he doesn't want to interfere and be that guy.
Well, if you see your kid making a mistake, you have to let him know. And I know it's aggravating to the kid. It feels like it's gonna be detrimental to your relationship. But even if they don't listen, at least you've always got "I told you so." That's a great option at the end of this thing.
I know it does matter to you. We've spoke about this a few times.
But kids do need to hear that. They do. Humble pie is a good thing because then they can always fix what's broken and get back on the bike. You know what I mean?
I think remaining teachable is important as well. If I look at things that have held me back in life, it's about deciding that I already know too much about something and not being teachable because I know how I'm going to fucking do it.
Yes.
And won't be
Yes,
told.
100%. You know what I mean? And sometimes, like, I mean, there's certain things that agree with us, and we just go that way, and we're headstrong, and we believe that's it. And then things happen, and we still don't have the ability to turn the ship around in the right direction. A loss is a warning, right? A loss is a lesson. It's a warning. It's telling you you're not doing this right. There's something you didn't do right that didn't allow you to win this fight. Now you have to fix it. What are you going to be able to do to fix it? And if you have no answer, if your answer is, well, I got to go back and punch harder, well, I got to go back and throw more punches, that's not it. It's never that easy. It's never that simple. It's much more involved than that.
Yeah. And you know, there was another big event on our side of the pond last night as well, not too far from where I'm sitting now at the Copper Box Arena in the borough of Hackney, London, headlined by the new kind of streaking like welterweight hotshot Adam Azim, who, as most people thought he would, did a pretty kind of surgical dismantling job on Ahara Davies. I know you didn't see it live last night, but I know you've caught up with it since. And I believe you were pretty impressed with the skill set and wares of Adam Azim, as was I last night.
Yeah, I was wondering if, I mean, you could tell Azim was 100% confident that he was going to win this fight. He just came in the ring.
He was supposed to win. Don't get me wrong. He was supposed to win.
Yeah,
he was a big betting favorite. He's the A side.
Exactly.
But, you know.
Yes, and he just came in. He took command of it, and he just more or less. It looked like he just more or less mowed him down. He knew that it was his fight to win, and there was little. As long as he came in 100%, which he obviously did, and he knows he can crack, and he knows he is in full belief that this man cannot take what he has to offer. And the fight went exactly as that. I mean, he didn't flinch. He didn't have to move his head. He didn't have to do anything. The kid was there for him every single time he let his hands go. And it makes me, Ben, it makes me question, like, it really makes me question trainers. When you come, if someone comes in off the street and they say to me, I want to learn to box and I want to learn to be a champion, the first thing I'm teaching them is defense. The first thing, not the second, not the third, the first thing I'm teaching you is defense, because once you feel pain, you don't like it anymore. Once you feel less confident, all these things, the first thing you do is teach a man to defend himself. And once you teach him to defend himself, as in terms of defense, blocking, slipping, all that, once he's comfortable with that, you can have Godzilla throwing kicks at him and his tail and King Kong come punching at him and all of that. But if he knows how to slip and block and he can handle all that, he can see, right? He can see in the middle of the storm. If he can open his eyes and see everything coming at him and he can process it, and it's not trauma anymore. You look at at that point, you look at punches as he's giving me an opening to hit him. I'm not defending your punches. You're punching at me and you're saying, hit me. Because as soon as your hands leave, the hardest thing to do is fight a person who's not going to throw any punches. He's covered up like this. It's a hard fight. It really is. Once a guy starts throwing his hands at you, he leaves himself open. He can be hit at any time. And because you're defensively adept, you can counter those openings. So that's what I just don't understand. Defense is offense. They complement one another. You can't have one without the other, and guys just get hurt. And it makes no sense to me. You see fighters coming out punchy, and half the 3/4 of the punches they got hit with, they don't have to get hit with if their trainers were teaching them defense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the thing with Ahara Davies in particular, who is, I believe he's 33 now, he pretty much announced his retirement in the ring, whether he changes his mind or not. He said, you know what, I think I started boxing in Hackney. I think my career is going to come to an end in the same borough. It's time for the young guns to take over now, obviously Adam Azim, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But Ahara's had a bunch of different trainers over the years. I've known him since he was an amateur. He used to train at the TKO gym in an industrial estate in Canning Town in East London. And he's been trained by different guys, you know what I mean? Last night in his corner, he had Carlos Marino, who's a pretty good young coach, and I've seen him spar. I can box a little bit too, and they're kind of friends from the I think they may or may not have grown up together, but they're those kind of friends in that sense. They go back a long way. And also Barry Smith was also in the corner. Barry Smith is the guy, you might have seen him. He's a big guy, white guy, who is kind of like the assistant coach for Anthony Joshua. You see him, I don't want to say with the bucket because it sounds demeaning, doesn't it? But Barry Smith is part of the Anthony Joshua team who works closely with Ben Davison. I don't know. Barry Smith was the guy who said, you've got to push him back and don't trade left hooks with him, OD. Don't trade left hooks with him. But I don't think O'Hara's ever settled with a coach where he's really put his methodology into him and they've really established that chemistry for what you could call a career or most of a career. O'Hara has chopped and changed a little bit, because he got banged out and around by Ismael Barroso in Las Vegas, right? I don't know if you remember. He signed a Golden Boy, O'Hara. Listen to this. He signed a Golden Boy several months ago, maybe last year. And he was on a 7-fight winning streak since losing to Jack Catterall, who you do know, obviously. On points. His only other loss was to Josh Taylor a little bit earlier in his career. So he was on a really good 7-fight winning streak. He got signed by Golden Boy Promotions and he had an interim title fight against Ismael Barroso, who's, he's pushing 40 years old, Barroso, isn't he? I think he is 40 years old, but he is a dangerous banger and always has been. And O'Hara got done in one round. It was just like, he just, I don't know whether you want to say caught cold. He was absolutely blitzing around, and that was the end of it. I'm guessing Golden Boy dropped him. He said he was still signed to Golden Boy afterwards, but I don't believe that was the case. And perhaps he didn't even quite know that. But they would drop you pretty savagely and ruthlessly. Even talking to Anthony Sims Jr. the other night, he was talking about how quickly Matchroom dropped him like a hot stone. So, O'Hara several months ago was on the verge of life-changing dream, and life-changing money. That he was, if he'd have beaten Barroso, they'd have called him a world champion, and I'd have got annoyed, like that angry emoji. And he would have got a full world title fight against the guy that Barroso's going to get it against. So O'Hara was on top of the world, signed to Golden Boy, going into a big fight, lost it in a round, and then he gets served up to Adam Azim, and it looked every inch the old campaigner against the young up and comer, didn't it?
Yeah, he really did. The punches didn't seem to have very much venom on them. I wouldn't say apologetic, but they didn't really seem to have. Yeah, sorry?
O'Hara's punches.
Yeah, the kid who got knocked out.
O'Hara Davies, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. His movements were, to me, they were hesitant. They didn't seem to be confident and fluid.
No, well, this is the thing. In the press conferences in the week of the fight, he was saying he didn't like going to press conferences. He'd rather be playing, Fortnite or Call of Duty on the PlayStation. He says, only reason I ever... Because it was the press conference was at Twickenham Rugby Club, at a big stadium, Twickenham Rugby Stadium, and it was part of a whole Leaders Week thing. So there were loads of exec types buzzing around who were actually nothing to do with boxing. It was like a big conference, and the boxing press conference was a part of that thing. And he was saying, only reason I became a boxer was because I didn't fit in. I wasn't fit for the corporate world, and it didn't suit me. And here I am sitting here, talking to all these people. And he says, and I don't even like it. I don't want to talk to journalists. I don't like any of these journalists or people down there. And he said, I just don't want to be here. And he was saying, they said it's a must-win fight for you, isn't it? And he said, no, it isn't. I can fight till I'm 70 years old if I want to. I don't have to win this. And what else did he say? He said, I only watched Adam Azim the other night. And I thought, oh, yeah, you know what? He is good. I only watched him a couple of nights ago. I'd never seen him before. The thing is, they know each other from the gym, to be honest with you, from way back in the day. But his whole kind of demeanour was somebody who was coming for a payday and didn't care and wasn't hungry. And I suggested that to certain people, including Ben Shalom, the promoter. And he said, no, it's a smokescreen. He is absolutely coming to win. He's had a perfect camp. Believe you me. But do you know what, Silk? You said it the other day. You said it after the Amo Williams Hassan Hamza Shiraz fight. You said there's a difference between coming to fight and coming to win. I think O'Hara put in a solid shift, and he was gutsy and he was tough, and he was putting something behind his shots. And I think if he could have got lucky and walked him onto something, he would have took it, and been glad of it. But there's a difference between coming to win and really believing that that's going to happen. And like you said, Azim had complete, utter self-belief.
Yeah, he was 100% in belief in himself and in the outcome, what was going to be the outcome. And you know, when you fight a fighter like that, you really have to shock him. You have to give him something to think about, and you can't go in there and by not hurting him, by not putting some discomfort in his life. That only enhances his thought process. That only enhances his offense. That only enhances his intent to want to hurt you and knock you out. That's all it does. And so you know, the inability to put him in check, the inability to hurt him only brought it on further. Like I've never, I don't know. When I was looking at the fight, I just saw him, Azim, as just he was just 100% confident in the outcome of what was going to happen. It was it was almost like it was I don't know, like it was written in the stone, and that's the way it was going to be. And he was 100% confident in his ability. He fought well. He let his punches go. He was making it. I don't even think he had to really try to make him miss. I know he got caught a couple of times, sort of like got tagged or came close, but I don't know. It's hard when you see fighters like that. When you see fighters that they take for, I don't know. You know what? I'm just so confused. That confuses me when I see fights like that. It really does. It's one of the most confusing type of fights for me to look at, because you know someone could do better. You know, you really feel that if they, you know, there's just something they can be told, and they can open up and do something. They can turn the flow of the tide and the way the fight was going. But you know, once it got back into once that bell rang, I don't know. The psychology of a fighter. What I tend to do is, and I think what we all tend to do, we tend to project. We project what we would do in that situation, or how we would feel, or what he should do. And obviously, like you said, because he doesn't really feel that way about boxing anymore, probably it's a moot point. It doesn't really matter.
Certainly, you know, when they use that old phrase, he knows how to lose, and there is such a thing as a kid who doesn't know how to lose. Your mentality is different when you've tasted defeat that first time than before you ever had that experience. Julian McGowan says, "I've never seen the qualities in Ohara Davies that others did. Always a one-sided fight. You know, he always saw it as a one-sided fight. See, because Azim, right, was European light welterweight champion, Silk, but he dropped the belt rather than fight another good British kid who's pulling up trees in the division called Dalton Smith. So basically, the EBU and the British Boxing Board of Control at the same time, because he was British and European champion, Azim, they each mandated the fight and ordered that Dalton Smith was a mandatory challenger. And because you know how promoters are and teams are, it didn't suit them to have that fight at this stage. They either weren't 100% confident of winning, or else they just simply think it's a bigger fight, and it will be a bigger fight 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, you know, take your pick. But he gave up the European title rather than accommodate one of his leading domestic rival that everybody wants to see him fight in this country. You know, I don't know what kind of view you have on that. Do you subscribe to the promoters?
Do you think that's his decision personally, or do you think that's more of a managerial decision?
Absolutely managerial, as I strongly implied in that last discourse. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's very little you can do about that as a fighter. You have to listen to your manager. You know what I mean? It's you really have no choice. Your manager says, "Listen, this is a better fight down the road."
But I'm not asking you about what he should think. I'm asking you what your view of that is.
Very few fighters would say no to a fight. Would fight anybody.
I understand that, and that's already a given. What I'm asking you is what you think of that kind of strategizing by teams. When the fans want to see Dalton Smith versus Adam Azim. He had the European title and gave it up rather than defend against him. What is your opinion of that in terms of the greater good of the sport or the greater good of someone's career? Ben Shalom said this, and we're not. That fight is, you've got to look at the best option for a fighter, and that wasn't the best option for him right now. Are you in that? Are you in that camp ultimately, or are you more in the camp of the guys? Or do you just want to see the dice rolled and the chips fall where they may?
You know, fighting's different in that way. Fighting is different today than it is back before I fought. And you could come into a fight with 3, 4, 5 losses, and still win, and still be, you know what I mean, and still be not just an opponent. You'll come in and it's legit. It's like, yeah, he may have lost, but he's not He's not a pushover. He's not a patsy.
Well, do you know, Russell Peltz once gave the example of Ralph Tiger Jones, who inflicted Ray Robinson's third loss. And he said he actually had 5 losses in a row, Ralph Tiger Jones. He said, but people then knew, TV executives then, back in those kind of, what was it? With the Pabst Blue Ribbon days. What was the channel? I'm trying to think what the channel even was that they fought on. But either way, those old 50s fight cards with Don Dunphy on. He said back then, TV guys knew that the guy could fight just because he had 5 losses on a spin.
Yeah, with the Gillette and
whereas
everything.
now they wouldn't take it.
Yeah, they wouldn't take it now. They say it looks uneven, it looks unfair. But that's the deviousness of boxing. Today, it's so important, and that's safety first. You packaged a fighter, you got him all, done up, and he's marketable, and then you move him in an area, and you never give him a fight where he looks, bad, because you're hurting your brand in order to do that. So now money is the motivation. The being called world champion isn't the motivation anymore. The money is generally the motivation. There are some fighters that have incredible ability and they'll make great money. And yes, they're championship caliber and can fight for a title. Doesn't matter if it's today or it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. But I think by putting the money first, they give everybody that knows boxing, especially from back in the day, the reason to point the finger and say, you know what? He's not all that, because back in the day, this would have happened, and they wouldn't be afraid to lose, and they wouldn't have been afraid to fight another undefeated fighter and what have you.
Yeah, and what's interesting is now those same promoters who are ultra cagey on these things and come up with the smoke screens about why certain fights aren't happening, they'll all throw those fighters straight in when the big Saudi money gets thrown at them. Because Gary in particular was saying, I think he was saying, why does Tyler Denny get thrown in with Shiraz? That doesn't make sense when he's a European champ, and he's in a good position right now in his career. There was a few other fights Gary was criticising on the Riyadh season card at Wembley and perhaps the previous one, and the 5 versus 5. I said I thought it was a good thing, it was an exciting thing. Gary said, no, I don't like it. They're just sacrificing fighters, because there's loads of money on the table. And they're taking fights they would never take normally with their manager's head on. So why is it suddenly okay to do it just because you're getting a one-off big payday on a big, big event?
I think, quite possibly it may be like the renormalization of boxing. This is what it could be. It's like you're taking the fights you have to fight and not just the fights you want to fight anymore. And I think that can always be good. Stop with the undefeated and I'm great because I've never lost. It's garbage. It's like it's absolutely manufactured. That's the only reason why you could march through that many people. It's like, okay, so you have the time the fight's taking place on your side, the area where it's taking place on your side, the time it's taking place on your side, the type of opponent you want, the size of the ring, every single thing. You're like, well, I'm the A side, so I'm calling it all. And it's ridiculous. It's just get down and fight the way it used to be and have the respect of being, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say a real fighter. Obviously, it's still a real fight, but I don't know. There's just something about it. It's like boxing's being defaced by this kind of stuff. When people are negotiating and niggling over silly little issues, and it should be, fighters, just the 2 fighters that are willing to fight, and their management have to look at them like, my fighter has character, and I want him to be respected. And yes, I want to get him the most money as well, because that's your job, but not to the point where it's like detrimental to how people look at him. I mean, listen, Floyd Mayweather's had an incredible career, right? Absolutely incredible career. But he can't even enjoy that career now because of the decisions that were made along the way, where people say, well, you didn't fight that guy. You avoided this guy. You avoided 10 guys that had the title that could have beat you. Paul Williams could have been. He has to deal with all that every single day. And maybe because he's a 100 millionaire now, it doesn't matter. But it does matter to him. It does matter in his soul, because he knows he has the talent to beat those guys. And he could have beat all those guys when they put that fight to him. But he didn't fight that fight. And now look at what he has, a lot of regret over the back end of his career.
Well, that's what Roy Jones said when I did an interview with Roy 10 years ago in Las Vegas on the eve of the Mayweather-Maidana fight, the second fight, the rematch. And I said, how do you feel about Floyd Mayweather, that legacy when set against the likes of Leonard and Robinson, etc. And he said, well, you can't put him in the same category as those guys because of the competition they fought. And I said, what? Because Floyd didn't have that competition. And he said, no, he had it. He just didn't fight it. That was Roy's position on it. I mean, obviously, he did fight a lot of guys. If you just look at the resume like a parade of wooden soldiers, they're pretty impressive. But the knock against Floyd, for those who want to debunk a record and might not be overly charitable towards him, that they say that it's a question of when he fought everybody and some of the things he imposed on some of these fighters. Even people they think he aged a lot of guys out or waited till they were a little bit less threatening. And obviously, the other great claim is that he took Canelo while he was relatively green, even though Canelo was a 40-odd fight veteran.
Well,
and he squeezed Canelo down to 152 as well.
Okay, so there's that, but I don't know.
But by the way, but just quickly, Tony Cox, I think you've got the wrong idea here. We're not talking. He says countless greats from yesteryear have bums of the month fights on their record. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the also rans. And he said, look at Julio Cesar Chavez's record. That I was a bit confused when you said boxing has always had those fights, because we were actually talking about. We came in here talking about the really meaningful fights and not being afraid to roll the dice somehow, and then we got to Floyd. I don't think either me or Silk was referring to also rans and Mexican road sweepers. Just to clear that up. Keep going, Silk.
Okay, well, I forgot what I was going to say.
And I fucking knew you would. I knew you would. That is the problem why I can't do this, because I know you cannot hold a thought that long. It's weird how you're always right, even though you literally can't remember one thing for the next. Isn't it, though?
Well, listen, when I'm in a flow, I'm like in a space. I was like having a
Let me try and remember what you were talking about. We were
pugilistic seance. You were having a pugilistic seance here.
Yeah, man. We were talking about Floyd Mayweather, and I said, people say he took a relatively green Canelo, and he also dragged him down to 152. You were about to interrupt just before I said the 152 bit. You remember it now?
Yeah. I do remember. Yeah, so he brought him down to that weight, and that's just another side of what they don't like about Floyd's fight. Like, everyone's using the little technical, these little contractual, I don't know, they're using a fight is settled between two men in the ring with their fists and their brains, right, and their bodies, and it isn't, and fights should never be determined by what you put in a contract. They just shouldn't. And that's one of the things where it doesn't look good for Floyd. It's like, listen, I want this weight event, I want that glove, I want that. It's just not how it's done, and I think that changed people's perspective on boxing for a while, and caused a lot of divisiveness between what great boxing is and what boxing is and what it's all about. But I do think, with fights like this and guys not afraid to take fights, like Tszyu, for instance, he probably shouldn't have taken that fight, but he did take that fight, and he lost the fight. He got KO'd. It was a terrible loss, but if he does have the heart, he does have the love for it, he can come back, and he can earn the respect of millions of people. And he can come back, and he can come back, but he just needs that help. He needs somebody with vision that can see what he does and what he needs to do in order to win those kinds of fights again. Yeah. His career, I'm sorry to diverge so much, but his career should not be over with 2 losses. Are you kidding? That's insane.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Dimitri Bivol? His manager confirmed earlier in the week that they have filed a protest with all the 4 major sanctioning bodies regarding the decision last weekend in the light heavyweight super fight. Yeah. But all they're seeking, they're not seeking damages or this or that. They're obviously not seeking anything as ludicrous as the verdict being overturned, because they know they'll be pissing in the wind. They're seeking an immediate rematch, which, you would think wouldn't be too hard to procure, really. So, given the situation, I can't see Artur not wanting it as well. But the only slight issue right now, as you could have guessed, perhaps, is that the IBF are looking to impose a spurious mandatory on Artur. They're wanting to fight a guy called, I've forgotten his name already. Honest to God, I've forgotten his name already.
Oh, Jesus Christ, you always do that. You're always forgetting when I want you to. Oh, sorry.
No, but this is where but I'm cool here because I am proving the point that even I've forgotten because that's how spurious the mandatory is. I can't even think of his goddamn name. His name is something like Lafayette or something. He's a German, I think, but he is. They've ordered him to fight their number one contender. Number one contenders and mandatories will be a beautiful idea if the mandatories weren't so bad most of the time and so meaningless and spurious. And do you know the way they can always pluck a mandatory that nobody's ever heard of, hardly? And you're like, well, how is this guy the mandatory challenger by any metric whatsoever? But that is the only issue, as you know, Silk, because that's what happened with Daniel Dubois, didn't it? You know, that's why he became suddenly supposedly a world champion and was defending that against Anthony Joshua, even though we all know who the heavyweight champion of the world is, and he lives in the Ukraine. You know, he gave the belt up rather than have it be stripped of it because he didn't want to. He wasn't going to fight Hrgovic, sorry, and he wasn't going to accommodate Dubois either. Again, you know, he wasn't going to accommodate their mandatory. So consequently, he said you can have the belt, you know, and then Dubois took it and defended it against Joshua in devastating, impressive style. But the thing is, this is what the IBF particularly do. In particular, that's what they do. They will force a spurious mandatory on you when just after an undisputed title fight. This is the second time they've done it in recent months this year, which they're not working for the greater good of boxing at all, are they?
No, it doesn't sound good. I mean, why do you think they stripped? Yeah, I mean, why?
Well, Usyk.
Yeah.
Well, here was the thing. After Fury and Usyk fought on May 18th this year, they had said, okay, that's the undisputed title fight. That's great. Then we want you to defend against, I think it was Hrgovic, because I don't think Dubois had beaten him at this point. I believe Dubois beat him. Did Dubois beat Hrgovic on the Joshua Ngannou show, was it? I think it probably was.
But basically, Ben, these guys know, all 3 or 4 of the rating bodies or organizations, they know that every time somebody wins a belt and it's a unified belt, they're going to be looking to strip them because there's no way.
Of course they are.
Right away. They're looking to strip
they want to be part of the big glamorous events of these undisputed title fights occasionally, and the money is enough to share for everybody on such occasions because it's such a mega fight. But other than that, it's not good for business, and they're interested in separating them again. But boxing wants that as well, you know. So boxing managers, promoters, and agents and TV networks, they all want that. They say that Eddie Hearn wants that. He can talk about, well, you know, AJ, he's looking to become a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, just like Muhammad Ali. And people who've got any sense of sanity or integrity at all are either stop caring or they're still doing their nut about it. I'm in that latter category but that's the way they talk, this industry, which honestly, that's why I pick you up on ever saying the world title. And it really does matter to me.
But because it's like, obviously it's a marketing arm. If you can say you're world champion, it markets, so it brings more people to the table. But it's almost like ass backwards, because if you could respect somebody because of their skills and their ability and even their personality to boot, put that on as well, you can do just as much without the title belt, without, you know, an organization's rating body or whatever it is, than you can with it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've seen sometimes fighters and fights that are bigger than the belts. And we do get in that rare position. But other than that, they're just bargaining chips. I mean, even Michael McKinson, who lost to the South African kid on last night's show in London, lost to Tulani and Bengay, that was for an IBO title. And he was saying before the fight, you know, that this is a bargaining chip for me, the IBO title. It's, you know, it allows me, it gives me some bargaining chips to take to the table to negotiate some bigger, more meaningful fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's
what's Julian saying here?
Julian said, "This is the point. None of us are sure how Dubois got his belt. I believe he was upgraded. He fought Hrgovic for the interim title, and then he was upgraded And the way Usyk framed
Was it
it
kind of
he
like
gave it to.
was it kind of like Ken Norton?
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, essentially, I mean, he was, yeah, because Ken Norton before that had beaten Jimmy Young, right? I believe. And they said that was they said retrospectively that was a world championship fight because Ali, same situation. Ali wanted a rematch against Leon Spinks wanted a rematch against Ali as the heavyweight champ of the world he was at the time, and he didn't want to defend against Norton, which the WBC was trying to enforce, and so Norton was upgraded off the back of the Jimmy Young win to the heavyweight champion of the world as far as the WBC were concerned. And as you all know, he fought Larry Holmes in his first defence and lost. Ken Norton is the only world heavyweight champion to lose all 3 title fights he had.
Yeah,
you know,
and
I will never consider Kenny a world champion ever.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. Unfortunately, is lovable and likable and the ability and all the rest of that kind of stuff, his unique style. No, but that whole time, who do you think would have won between Ken Norton if he fought Leon Spinks?
I think that Ken Norton would have done a number on him. I mean, it was interesting though, because look, when you look at Ken Norton's, when you look at Leon Spinks's, the time he had after he won that title in February 1978, I believe he got arrested half a dozen times in that first few months as the champion.
Yeah.
I think he was arrested as soon as he got back to St. Louis. He was arrested for cocaine possession, and he said somebody put it in the band of his trilby. He was getting mobbed, and somebody thought, "Oh, here's a little gift. I'll put a little bit of cocaine in the band of this hat," and the police found it on him somehow. But he was going around in blue fox furs. And he was, partying all night, hookers and know that coke and drink. And
I think he lost his teeth at one point too.
That was a bit later on when he was already on the downward slide, when he woke up in some motel naked, minus all his fine threads and with the teeth gone as well, because they were like, I don't know, diamond encrusted or whatever they were. But so I would have had to have backed. I would have to have backed Norton to have beaten him. I want to take Sergio Lee's point quickly because he says, has Dubois proven his worth as a title holder, even if he's not primary man? Tim Witherspoon was never the world champion, even though he won it twice. That's different. Tim Witherspoon won twice in one versions when everything was clouded. You can't take that away from Tim that he was a 2-time version holder. It is more ridiculous with Dubois because there's nothing wrong with Usyk, who only won it this fucking year. May the 18th, he was the undisputed champion. It is completely different, Sarge. All spurious ultimately if you really want to get technical and hardcore, but that you cannot compare Tim Witherspoon to Daniel Dubois' status as a heavyweight champion. Please don't try to do that again. Okay. But so I think Norton would have beat Spinks on that note. But
I'm of the same belief. I mean, the fight that Norton gave Holmes, and Holmes was extremely, at that time was pitching, fastballs on everything, and I do not see how Leon Spinks could defeat that Ken Norton.
No, I don't. And I think Leon was a good fighter. Obviously, he won an Olympic gold medal. You have to be a good fighter and talented to do that. But I think he was obviously managed wrong. I think though, even the way they threw him in with Ali after 7 pro fights probably wasn't the most considered decision, although it came out well for them. But he wasn't ready, was he, for that territory? He wasn't ready to be the world heavyweight champion. And I'd love to. A Leon Spinks biography would be good, for someone to write that, because that would. I imagine it was a pretty crazy story those years when he beat Ali and the years afterwards, and then the kind of poetic decline of it all as well. I think because Mr. T was his bodyguard.
Would be I do remember that. Yes, I think probably one of the most epic books that could be written would be Michael Spinks and Leon Spinks at the same time, how they converge and diverge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like a biography. Somebody breaking both down careers and linking them. That would be a great. It would have to be it would have to be a biography, not an autobiography, obviously, because Leon's dead now anyway. But I said that a bit flippantly. Leon's dead, God rest his soul and rest in peace. But it would be a great book, to do the Spinks brothers book. In fact, I don't know. Maybe that's something I could think about at some point. I need to. I wrote. You know what? I wrote 5 books in quite a short space of time, and I've totally atrophied with that in 2024. I haven't really come up with anything, so I think I need to get inspired again.
Even just Michael Spinks' story alone I think is, I think it's I think you probably go. There are things going on there that we don't know, and that we take for granted. You know what I mean? It's just good brother, bad brother thing, and he did all things right, and Leon did all the things wrong. I think there's a lot more underneath the surface of Michael that we don't even know.
It probably is, and it's interesting. I believe people say Butch Lewis lost a load of his money or stole a load of his money. He found out after Butch Lewis died, he didn't have the assets and wealth he thought he had.
Yeah, and that's a shame. So even just getting to the bottom of that, and that's a story that's often told with boxing. If there's a fighter, there's a manager, a duplicitous manager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always something
meretricious and duplicitous characters, as they are.
See that again?
Oh, for fuck's sake! I was trying to feed into your language, and we just can't do it, can we? You said duplicitous, and I just said meretricious.
Oh,
meretricious. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth
it. Yeah, I mean. Okay. No, I was gonna say no, nothing. I'm not saying anything. I like the way this is going. Good conversation. But yeah, so that would be brilliance. I think Michael's with us, and Michael's here, and he has eyes. He obviously knows his career, but he knows Leon as well. And
you know what? It could still be done with Michael,
yes.
with him as the consultant, and that's who you'd have to work with. Do you think he's? I've only met him the once. Well, you know what? I met him twice, but it was so brief in LA before Fury Wilder won, and it was rather brusque. I asked him for a picture, and he basically said, "Unless you're going to take it right now, forget about it." And I was just out of battery. I was out of battery, and he just said, "Okay," and then just walked off. So I didn't get the greatest impression of him in LA, but we met him in Atlantic City. I'm sure you've met him before. Yeah, but I met him with you in Atlantic City. And
I fought on his undercard. In Vancouver, Canada. He fought Oscar Rivadeneira.
Oh yeah. So I
think that was the same night as Larry Holmes and Joe Frazier Jr. Marvis Frazier, sorry.
Yeah. So you go way back with him. But I was going to ask you, do you think he's pretty well preserved, or do you think he's another of those guys who's a little bit less than he was?
No, I think he's pretty well preserved. Michael, I don't think he suffered. I think he may just generally have a short attention span, or he does what he loves and that's it. And he doesn't feel the parameters that everyone else does, because he's, after he won the world title and all the rest of that kind of stuff, and he's done a lot of hard work. He's like, this is how I want to do things. So on his urge, or on whatever urge he has, he's like, well, I'm going to do that now, and y'all got to adjust and adapt. And that's kind of the way of the king, right? When you're the king, you're just kind of allowed to do that. It's a given. Yeah.
Oh, so, by the way,
he's very present. He's absolutely present, cognizant of everything, what's going on. He catches vibes just like anybody else, and he's absolutely capable of telling his story. Absolutely.
Well, whether he is or not, and I remember this now, Joe has mentioned it, there is a book called One Punch from the Promised Land. It's a book about the Spinks brothers. I don't know how good it is, but
really?
I do remember that they have one already on exactly that theme.
Oh, okay. But you know what? If you change the questions, you get different answers, right?
Oh, you listen, just because someone's done a book once about somebody, it doesn't mean somebody shouldn't do it again. How many books are there on our league? Even William Detloff, who writes for Ringside Seat, and we met him in at AC as well last year. He wrote a book about Matthew Saad Muhammad, and so I think was it called Miracle Matthew? But regardless of what it was called, he wrote it, and so did Tris Dixon. So they both, two credible boxing journalists and writers, are both chosen. They published them within months of each other, as I recall. Yes. So it's not to say. I must admit, with Benitez and Ayala, it was important to me to get out there first. And in both cases, I felt that somebody was competing with me, because Yvonne Benitez told me that Wilfred already had a book ready to be published when I first approached her. It wasn't true. Clearly, that wasn't true. But they said that. And so I felt like I had to get it out quickly, just in case this other book came out first.
Yeah.
And then obviously, a few years later...
It guaranteed the book got done. That's for sure.
You know, exactly. And the same thing with Ayala, because Lester Bedford said he had his own project about, former guest on this show, and he was very good.
Yeah.
He said he had his own project, in the works about Tony Ayala Jr. and et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure he didn't do it first either, But I think what Lester is actually going to do is publish a memoir about his career at large, which is very illustrious and very interesting. And it may contain bits about Tony in it, But
well, if there's one thing, you're extremely competitive.
But yeah, as are you, and I don't mean that that's not a denigration.
I mean, it's not about me right now, Ben. It's about you. I said you're extremely competitive, so you don't have to. I didn't say it as a negative thing. You feel like you had to retort in such a.
No, it's just because when people have asked me about you recently, I've said he is highly competitive. Because they'll say, "What the hell about this glove thing? Why doesn't he? What's he, going on about this for? And why does he think this?" And I'll say, I said that one of his traits, he is very competitive, and I think the way it means so much to you, the prediction league thing, and you're like,
No, come on,
you're just joking. You're just joking.
Yeah.
So when you're really digging your heels in and saying, no, I'm not taking that loss on the better, which you're having, by the way, but you're joking.
Listen, no, because I let you get away with that before. When we were about 5 fights in, and you said I chose a fight that I didn't choose, and you said, "Oh, you have to take it like this." I was like, "Oh man, this prediction league, okay, yeah, whatever," and I took it, and then now at the end, you wanted me to do it again. I'm like, no, well, I'll do it once. Twice, no.
Now you did. Now listen, you can't not pick on the big fight like Bivol Beterbiev. It's not acceptable not to make a pick. And you said Bivol essentially. You said,
no, I didn't.
You
say
said I'll say Bivol, but I may change your mind later. You said.
No, I did not. I said I would call in with what my choice is, and when I called in, I said it's too tight for me to call on either one.
I know. Now you didn't say, say that.
What's the difference? What's the difference between that or if I didn't make a prediction at all? You were just going to give me an L if I didn't make a prediction?
Yeah, come on, Michael. You were displaying your stats, says Julian McGowan. Listen, right, here's the thing. Well, all you did, and you want a perfect slate for it.
Actually, this should be 80%. Not
you copied 70%. Mine and Gary's predictions and then just abstained and then withdrew your other prediction on the big one, and tried to abstain. That is
what
not
happened?
The way it goes.
Say it again. What happened?
You copied all of mine and Gary's undercard predictions and withdrew your prediction on the main event. That's what you did. And that's why you say, I say, so who are you picking? You go, who are you guys picking? You're like the guy who wants to see what the answer.
No, you have been like you're projecting. You're telling me everything about yourself by projecting what you are.
Because I'm the one who always sticks my neck out and goes first. I'm the one who goes first. You know
true.
that. You guys both say to me, both say to me, what are you picking? I always go first.
That's hilarious. How could you even say
what about when you wanted to know about the Taylor Catterall thing, and then you were like, "Oh, God pays debt to that money." You wanted to know who we were picking. You couldn't just make your secret ballot decision yourself.
No, and you guys would not tell for the life of you.
I know we wouldn't because we shouldn't. Don't you get it? We shouldn't tell you who we're picking. When we make a decision,
when we're making a decision, we make a decision on the show, and you state your thing, he states his, I state mine. You had absolutely no intent of stating it. You were actively blocking my decision process.
You should have just said who you thought was going to win the fight.
And listen, and I'm not siding with you guys. I don't think because you guys pick somebody, I'm going to pick them. No. Well, obviously, I'm leading in the prediction league. So why would I follow what you're doing when
the prediction league? The prediction league is over. You won. But if anyone asked me, it was 28-10, 28-9. You could say 28-9 if you want. But I don't suppose anyone's going to ask me anyway.
29-9, not 28-9, 29-9.
I can't remember, but basically you didn't get. I think it was 28-10 is what I remember.
No, it's not 28-10.
But that's whatever. Listen, whatever it says in the WhatsApp group when I publish it is what it is as far as I'm concerned. Because I was giving you the Bivol loss, and I give you all your legitimate wins. I gave you every win you deserved, and I gave you.
No, you didn't. That's twice you're trying to jerk me now. No way.
Well, it's over anyway, and now we're going to sort the men from the boys.
It's over now. I'm looking for my crown in the mail. And I'll be expecting.
You can have that crown if you accept the numbers. I'm a hard liner. You can have the crown. You still won, Silk. You've still won.
Okay, but let me see what the crown looks like.
All right, I'm going to get you something. But listen, Here we go. I'm gonna get Kathy to deliver it. I could probably get it sent out there, or maybe we could work out. My girl in New York could sort that. But regardless, right? Let's explain to the viewers by way of closing what we're gonna do. I think when Gary comes back, probably is what it's going to be now, because Gary's going to take a break for a few weeks. But we all get 20 quid, right? And we can bet it on whatever we want every week on the fights. You could put a five, like for instance, you could have put a fiver on Azim in the 8th round last night. You could have put another fiver on Shannon Courtney to get beat, and a tenner on Aziz to win, or whatever. And then whatever you want to do with your 20 quid, that's where you put it. And the winner, not because some of these picks are easy to make, and obviously you get the occasional upset, whatever. But let's see who makes the most money with their boxing judgment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've got a name: Quid Games.
Quid Games. There you go. I actually like it for once. Quid Games. That's what we could call it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's called Quid Games. That's good.
And we could maybe get those outfits, like the funny green kind of tracksuits they had. Yeah.
Oh, you saw that over there?
Do you know what? I had a photo app that made different kind of little emojis of people or cartoons of people. And at one point, remember when I made the ones of boxers of me and you with the gloves?
Yeah.
One of the options was Squid Game tracksuits. I don't think it does it anymore. Otherwise, I could do the three of us. Squid Games. How cool would that be?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can have that one for free. I won't charge you.
No, well, that's very, very good of you. Very, very decent of you, as always. Julian says he likes the idea. He says, great show, guys. You see, the thing is, one thing I've got to say is, the things that bother me, because I want things to be really smooth and really slick, I don't think they perhaps don't matter, because the way that you and I get on each other, I think people like that. I think people like this kind of joke rivalry.
The only time I get on you is when you legitimately deserve it. It's not like I'm not doing it for like a click or a like. Sometimes, we all need to be put in our place, and we all need to be, we all need to answer to somebody. And every once in a while, like, your horse gets a little high, and you know what I mean? And then being brought back down to earth, it's a good place to be. Once you start rocking uncontrollably like this, then I know it's getting away. We need to bring you back.
Yeah. I almost don't want to read this comment, but I will, because it was made. But then the reason I don't was because I don't want to start you off again. I don't want to put 10 cents in your slot. But it says you could both co-author a book comparing gloves dimensions to damage ratio called Size Batters. I knew you'd like that.
Yeah, my glove black, your glove is red.
Yeah. But and he also says a betting tips section here once a week would be great, Ben. I put a few on recommended for your Facebook page. I actually think we could really go somewhere with the podcast with this angle of Quid Game Silk, because if we do it well and we're actually playing with real money, and Gary already put the money up, by the way. Gary's put in 20 quid for me and you and himself.
Oh, really?
So I think we're going to have to hold that. If he is taking a break because he's got some other things he's got to take care of, I think we should just hold that budget until he comes back.
Wouldn't he appreciate it if we started without him?
We you know what we can do? In fact, we can do. I think maybe you need a bit of practice to cut your teeth on the actual betting, because I know you're not a gambling man. You'll be good at it and you'll get a feel for it pretty quickly.
Well, all I have to do is be right in order to win, right? Like, what's hard about it?
No, it's different, Silk. You don't just have to be right, because just being right about something obvious doesn't pay any money. It's about, I've made money on looking for angles. Like, I'll give you an example. I remember, like, Natalie, my ex-girlfriend, she had a blinder one night. She bet on Luke Campbell to knock down Ryan Garcia in the second.
Wait, 1 second. Ex-girlfriend. She's Muslim?
Let me think. How does ex work on that sense?
You said she's your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I don't get the ex reference. I don't get the ex-Muslim tie-in. I don't get it. Can you explain it?
Over your head.
Does anybody get that joke? How ex-girlfriend means as in is she Muslim joke? Does anybody get it?
Maybe?
Oh, Malcolm X. Oh, come on. That was weak, man. That was weak.
That was good.
I mean,
if it was over your head, it was good.
Muslims can't bet. It was over everybody. Oh yeah, Tony Cox got it. We've only got his word for that, bless him. But
all right, Tony. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Okay, well, listen. What was I going to say? And I can't forget it. Otherwise, I'll be like you. If I just get distracted and suddenly can't remember what I was saying. She played a blinder one night when she bet on Luke Campbell to score a knockdown of Ryan Garcia in the second, but to get stopped in the fifth. And that was such a good bet. She got loads of money back off like a fiver. It was like a couple of £100 off £5 stake. Because she put fiver on Garcia to get decked in the second, but a fiver on Garcia by KO in the fifth. That is how you prove your worth. I'll give you an example. I won money.
That's just a once in a lifetime bet. There's just no way that can be.
Yeah, but listen to me. If you're smart, you can find angles. I'm not talking about that. I'm trying to give you an example of how money is made at this. It's not just made by betting on the guy that was going to. If you'd have bet on Azim last night, that it was 8-1, which basically 8-1 favourite, which basically means for every $8 you put on there, you'd only get $1 back. Do you understand that? So that's not very attractive, is it?
Yeah.
That's called the strong favourite. But I made some money, nothing worth bragging about, on the amount of punches that Munguia and Canelo would throw in the fight, or land. It was either punches landed or thrown. I think it was landed, and it was only about, I can't remember what it was, but it was over 150 or something like that each, and it came in. So that is where
you have to be the exact number, or you have to give an over under.
Yeah, exactly, over under.
Oh, okay.
Not the exact number. I mean, that'd be crazy. The exact number would be ridiculous. That would be that's like lottery stuff.
Yeah.
But like I say, you will get a feel for it and you'll get knowledge of it when you do it. But no, you don't just have to be right to make money, and you want to be careful not to lose it all at the first fence as well. Because once your 20 quid's gone, that's it. Unless we're allowed to buy back in, which will probably have to happen at some point, won't it? There'll be a cut-off point, and then we cash out at the end of a season or whatever. But if somebody loses their money, then they're probably going to have to buy themselves back in, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be better than you just phoning it in every week and then just somehow getting lucky. I'll tell you that.
I mean, it's called knowledge. The fact that we're taking the knowledge.
How much knowledge you've got when there's money at stake.
The fact that we're taking the knowledge out of it now and just going for money is, I mean, it's
we're not taking the knowledge out of it.
It's pretty much how the world works these days, anyway.
No, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but honestly, you'll be surprised. No, it is absolutely knowledge to do well with betting on boxing, particularly if you're betting on a favourite. Because if you've got a favourite, the only way to make money on him is to bet how he's going to win, like in the group of rounds, or even to say he will score 2 knockdowns. You have to look for other value. You can't just say Adam Azim will win. You won't get money that way. You won't lose money.
What I'm saying is that's just like, so it's a prediction, it's a guess. And
let me tell you something to frame it in a way that will appeal to you. Suppose some incredible visionary had said, right, I bet Fury on points, but he will suffer a knockdown en route. Fury on points, but Fury to get knocked down. You'd get really good money for that.
I did that already.
That's what I'm trying to say, for God's sake. I'm trying to frame it in the only way you'll understand with an example about
the Lord's name in vain on a Sunday, sacrilege.
The Sabbath or the sabbatical, yeah? We've come full circle. For anyone who was here at the start. Listen, so you get it now, right? You get it now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting it.
Yeah. Wicked. All right. Listen, guys, I think that is a wrap. We are 1 hour, 17 minutes and 15 seconds currently. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sugar, Silk and Stretch. We'll be back next week. You have Regis Prograis versus Jack Catterall amongst the boxing action, which we'll pontificate on. And perhaps we'll even launch the very first round of Squid Games, even without the venerable Gary Stretch. In the meantime, like, subscribe, spread the word, attract millionaire sponsorship, do what you have to do to make this the biggest thing since the Bible. Peace out. Be lucky.